The struggle continues, but with a glimmer of hope. After the Confederate army had left and the Muslims got some relief, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, commanded the army to go to the Qurayza tribe. Their treason almost led to the eradication of the entire Muslim community. So the Muslims surrounded the Qurayza fortress, who were trapped with little food. After 25 days of holding out, Qurayza realized that they had to accept the consequences of their decisions. Qurayza previously had an alliance with the Aus tribe in Medina. And so they asked the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, if he would graciously allow Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, who was from the Aus tribe, to make the judgment against them. The Prophet agreed. So Sa'd first wanted to make sure that his verdict would be respected by all. So he turned to the leaders of each group, asking them to pledge to abide by his ruling, and they agreed. Sa'd judged that the fighters among the men of Qurayza would be executed, while the non-combatants would be considered prisoners of war. This was the verdict that was aligned with actually Jewish teachings on the understanding of treason. This was the only time such a harsh punishment would occur in the Prophet's life. But we have to assess the difference between this treason and the treason of Qaynuqa and Nadir, the previous tribes who had plotted against the believers. See, the plan of Qurayza was to join the Confederates in wiping out Islam and Muslims, and so their army joined with 10,000 others in order to achieve this nefarious goal. So in this case, the men were ready to seal their own fate if they were going to lose, knowing that Jewish law itself calls for death for treason. So one night, months later, the Prophet had a surprising dream. He dreamed that he would enter the Kaaba sanctuary with his head shaved along with his fellow believers. This dream was taken as revelation, that they would go to a pilgrimage. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, called all of the believers that he would organize a trip to do the pilgrimage. This announcement came with great welcoming open arms from the believers, and so they gathered 1,500 Muslims who would join this journey. There were risks, but the Prophet still forbade the Muslims from carrying weapons other than what was necessary for self-defense, just in case. The Prophet's wife Salama would accompany him on this trip. The Quraysh soon heard the news of the Muslims intending to visit the Kaaba. They were faced with a dilemma. If they barred the Muslims from entering Mecca, or they fought them during the sacred months, they would be dishonoring their own sacred rules and culture. On the other hand, if they let the Muslims enter Mecca, it would make them look weak and give the Muslims more prestige. The Quraysh decided to send Khalid ibn al-Walid with 200 men to stop the Muslims before they could reach Mecca. Over the next few days, they had some tense negotiations on the terms of a peace agreement. When the Muslims realized they would not be able to do the pilgrimage, they were extremely frustrated. And then the Prophet agreed to terms that seemed very unfair to them. The companions could not understand what had just happened. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, consoled them, telling them that God gave them the reward of pilgrimage as that was their intention. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, decided to tell them, look, let's all sacrifice our animal and shave our heads, and then we can finish as though we have left a pilgrimage. The companions were so upset they refused to follow his instructions. And this is the first time this had ever happened in the entire prophethood, now going for about 18 years. He asked them again, and still no one responded. So the Prophet himself was frustrated. He went back to his tent and asked his wife Salama, what should I do? She advised him to just do what you know is right, and they will follow you. And so the Prophet did what he knew was the rites of the Abrahamic pilgrimage. And her advice proved to be correct. Everybody just followed his lead. At first, the companions of the Prophet were sad, and they saw that the treaty looked like a defeat and humiliation. The treaty wasn't in their immediate favor. The Prophet's trust in God and long-term vision for peace guided his decision in Hudaibiya. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, knew that God's promise of performing the pilgrimage was true, just as the fact that Islam will spread to the corners of the earth and that Mecca will be liberated is also true. It was just a matter of time. The companions were conflicted, thinking that maybe this was, as the Prophet had said on more than one occasion, his own decisions. But this is not one of those cases. After the revelation of Surah Al-Fath, where God said, truly, this is a great, clear opening for all of you as believers, the believers then realized that this was actually God's plan, and in fact, it was a great blessing.